The stagecoach lurched to a violent stop, throwing Fiona Ramirez forward against the wooden seat, and when she stumbled out into the blinding Nebraska sun, the driver was already pointing at the shattered luggage rack where her trunk had been. Now nothing but splintered wood and broken leather straps scattered across the dusty road behind them. It was August of 1876, and Council Bluffs was supposed to be her fresh start, her escape from the suffocating expectations of her late aunt's Boston household. But now everything she owned except the simple dress on her back and the small reticule clutched in her trembling hands was gone, lost somewhere in the 20 miles of rough terrain they had just traversed. "I am terribly sorry, miss," the driver said, removing his hat and wringing it between his weathered hands. "That last river crossing, the current was stronger than I anticipated. Your trunk must have worked loose then. By the time I noticed, we were too far along to turn back." Fiona stared at him, her mind struggling to process the enormity of what this meant. Everything. Her clothes, her books, the small inheritance of jewelry from her mother, the carefully folded letters of introduction to the respectable families in Council Bluffs, even the daguerreotype of her parents. All of it gone. She was 22 years old, alone in a frontier town with nothing. "But surely you can go back and search for it," she asked, hating how her voice wavered. "Miss, that trunk could be anywhere along a 20-mile stretch. Could have fallen into the river, could have been picked up by anyone passing by. I got a schedule to keep." "I am real sorry, but there is nothing more I can do." He gestured toward the bustling street of Council Bluffs. "The town is right here. Maybe someone can help you." Before she could respond, he had climbed back onto his seat and snapped the reins, leaving her standing alone on the corner of what appeared to be the main street. Buildings lined both sides, wooden structures with false fronts that seemed to promise more than they could deliver. A saloon, a general store, a hotel with a hand-painted sign that read Morrison House, a livery stable. Men in dusty clothes moved along the wooden sidewalks, some tipping their hats to her, others openly staring. She felt exposed, vulnerable in a way she had never experienced in Boston. Fiona forced herself to move forward. The hotel seemed like the logical first step, though she had no idea how she would pay for a room. The small amount of money in her reticule was meant to tide her over until she could access her accounts, which required the bank documents that had been in her trunk. She climbed the steps to the hotel entrance, her legs still unsteady from the long journey. The lobby was modest but clean, with a dark-haired woman behind the desk who looked up with a practiced smile. "Welcome to Morrison House. Will you be needing a room?" Fiona started, then stopped. How did she even begin to explain her situation? "There has been an accident. My trunk was lost during the journey from Omaha. I find myself in rather difficult circumstances." The woman's smile faded into something more sympathetic, but also more guarded. "I see. Do you have family here in Council Bluffs?" "No. I was coming to take a position as a teacher, but all my documentation was in my trunk. I have some money, but not enough for more than a night or two, and I need to send telegrams, try to sort this out." "The telegraph office is 2 doors down," the woman said, not unkindly. "As for the room, I can give you 1 night at a reduced rate, seeing as you are in a bind. After that, I am afraid I will need full payment." Fiona nodded, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. She would not cry, not here, not in front of strangers. She paid for the night, wincing at how the coins disappeared from her small reserve, and accepted the key. The room was on the 2nd floor, small and sparse, but it had a bed and a wash basin. She sat down on the edge of the mattress, and finally allowed herself to feel the full weight of her situation. She had left Boston because staying had become unbearable. Her aunt had been kind enough to take her in after her parents died 5 years ago, but the constant matchmaking, the parade of unsuitable men, the suffocating social obligations had worn her down. When the letter arrived offering her a teaching position in Council Bluffs, it had seemed like providence, a chance to be useful, independent, to build a life on her own terms. Now that dream felt impossibly far away. After washing her face and attempting to make herself presentable, Fiona went back downstairs and found the telegraph office. She sent messages to her bank in Boston, to the school board in Council Bluffs explaining her situation, and to her aunt, though she dreaded the inevitable response urging her to return. The costs mounted with each word, further depleting her meager funds. "That is all I can manage today," she told the clerk, a thin man with spectacles that kept sliding down his nose. "Responses usually take a day or two," he said. "Where can we find you?" "Morrison House for now." She stepped back out into the afternoon heat. The sun was relentless here, different from Boston's summers. Everything felt different, harsher, more exposed. She walked slowly along the sidewalk, trying to form some kind of plan. Perhaps the general store needed help. Perhaps someone in town needed a seamstress, though without proper clothes or supplies, even that would be difficult. She was so lost in thought that she did not see the horse until it was nearly upon her. A strong hand grabbed her arm and pulled her back onto the sidewalk just as the animal thundered past, its rider shouting an apology over his shoulder. "You have got to watch where you are going, miss. These streets are not like city streets." Fiona turned to find herself looking up at a tall man with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of a summer sky. He wore the rough clothes of a working cowboy, dusty leather chaps over worn denim, a faded blue shirt, and a hat pushed back on dark blonde hair. There was something solid about him, dependable, though she could not have said why she thought so based on a split-second encounter. "Thank you," she managed. "I was not paying attention. It has been a difficult day." He released her arm, and she found herself missing the steadiness of his grip. "Kade Young," he said. "I work at the Triple Creek Ranch about 10 miles south of here. Are you new to town?" "Fiona Ramirez. I arrived today, or rather, I arrived but my belongings did not. The stagecoach lost my trunk somewhere between here and Omaha." His expression shifted to concern. "Lost your trunk? That is everything, I would imagine." "Everything," she confirmed, and saying it aloud made it feel even more real, more devastating. "I was coming to teach at the school here, but all my credentials, my letters of introduction, my clothes, everything was in that trunk." Kade removed his hat and ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that seemed habitual. "That is a real problem. Did the driver try to recover it?" He said it could be anywhere along 20 miles of road. He had a schedule to keep. She heard the bitterness in her own voice and tried to soften it. "I am sure he was right. It would be impossible to search all that ground." "Maybe not impossible," Kade said slowly. "I know that route pretty well. Ride it every few weeks when I come into town for supplies." "If you could tell me approximately where the difficult part of the journey was, I could take a look." Hope flickered in Fiona's chest, though she tried not to let it grow too strong. "You would do that, for a stranger?" "Well, I figure you are not a stranger anymore, seeing as I just saved your life from that runaway horse," he said, and there was a gentleness in his teasing that made her want to smile despite everything. "Besides, it is not right, a lady arriving in town and losing everything. If there is a chance of finding your trunk, seems worth the effort." "I do not know how I would repay you," Fiona said. "Did not ask for payment. Just tell me what you remember about where things went wrong." They walked to a bench outside the general store, and Fiona described everything she could remember about the journey. The river crossing about an hour before they reached Council Bluffs, how the water had been higher than expected, how the stagecoach had tilted alarmingly to one side. The rough patch of road after that, all rocks and ruts. Kade listened carefully, nodding occasionally. "I know exactly where that is," he said when she finished. "The Elkhorn River crossing. It has been running high with all the rain we had last week. If your trunk came loose there, it might have washed downstream or it might have caught on something. Either way, I will ride out tomorrow at first light and see what I can find." "Tomorrow? Do you not have work at the ranch?" "I was planning to head back tonight, but this seems more important." "I can bunk at the livery. Old Pete owes me a favor anyway." He stood, settling his hat back on his head. "Where are you staying?" "Morrison House. For tonight, anyway. After that, I am not certain. One thing at a time," Kade said. "Let me see about your trunk first. Have you eaten?" Fiona realized she had not since a meager breakfast before dawn at the last way station. "No, but I should be careful with my money. There is a decent place 2 streets over. The widow Hendricks runs it. She will give you a fair meal at a fair price, and if you mention my name, she might throw in extra biscuits. Her son worked at Triple Creek before he headed to California." He was being so kind, this stranger, and Fiona felt tears prick at her eyes again. She blinked them away. "You have already done so much. I have just talked so far. Let me actually do something before you thank me. Come on, I will walk you over there. These streets can be confusing if you do not know them." They walked together through the late afternoon streets of Council Bluffs. Kade pointed out the various establishments: the blacksmith who did excellent work, the doctor who was reliable in emergencies, the store owner who would extend credit to those he trusted. He seemed to know everyone, stopping twice to exchange greetings with people they passed. Each time he introduced Fiona, explaining briefly about her situation, and each time the response was sympathetic. "Folks here look out for each other," Kade explained as they continued walking. "It is not like a city where you can be anonymous. Everyone knows everyone's business, which can be trying, but it also means you are not alone when trouble comes." "Is that why you are helping me?" Fiona asked. "Because it is expected." "No," he said simply. "I am helping you because you need help and I can give it. Expected or not does not enter into it." The widow Hendricks' establishment was a small building that smelled wonderfully of roasting meat and fresh bread. Mrs. Hendricks herself was a round woman with iron-gray hair and sharp eyes that softened when she saw Kade. "Kade Young, I heard you were in town. And who is this?" "This is Miss Fiona Ramirez. She had some bad luck with the stage today. Figured she could use one of your good meals." Mrs. Hendricks bustled over, already pulling Fiona toward a table. "Lost your trunk, did you? I heard about that. The driver came through here earlier, telling anyone who would listen about the accident. Seemed more worried about his schedule than about you, if you ask me. Sit, sit. I will bring you something substantial." The meal was indeed substantial. A thick stew with vegetables and beef, fresh bread with butter, and strong coffee. Kade sat across from her, nursing his own cup of coffee and occasionally stealing bites of bread. They talked easily, and Fiona found herself relaxing for the first time since the disaster. "Tell me about Boston," Kade said. "I have never been further east than Kansas City." So Fiona talked about Boston, about the narrow streets and tall buildings, the harbor with its ships, the social rituals that had felt like chains. She talked about her parents, how they had died in a cholera outbreak when she was 17, how her aunt had taken her in but never quite understood her desire for something more than a good marriage and a proper home. "What made you want to teach?" Kade asked. "My mother was a teacher before she married," Fiona said. "She always said it was the most rewarding thing she had ever done, helping children discover the world through books. After she died, I found her old lesson plans, her notes about her students. It made me feel close to her. And I wanted that to make a difference, to be useful in a meaningful way. Sounds like the school board here is lucky to get you, Kade said. Once we sort out this trunk business and get your credentials back. If you find the trunk, Fiona said, trying not to hope too much. When, Kade corrected gently. Think positive. After the meal, Kade walked her back to Morrison House. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed impossibly vivid after Boston's more muted colors. They stopped at the hotel entrance, and suddenly Fiona did not want to say goodbye, did not want to be alone with her worries. Thank you for everything today, she said. You have been incredibly kind. I will be out at first light tomorrow, Kade said. Depending on what I find, I might not be back until evening. Try not to worry too much. That is easier said than accomplished. I know, but worrying will not change anything. Get some rest. Things will look better in the morning. He tipped his hat and walked away, his long stride carrying him quickly down the street toward the livery. Fiona watched him go, then climbed the stairs to her small room. She lay awake for a long time, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the frontier town, wondering what tomorrow would bring. Morning came with pale light filtering through the thin curtains. Fiona washed and dressed in the same clothes from yesterday, feeling increasingly uncomfortable in the dusty, travel-worn garments. She had nothing else. The reality of that hit her again as she looked at herself in the small mirror. She could not meet the school board like this. She could not do anything like this. She went downstairs and found Mrs. Morrison, the hotel owner, in the dining room serving breakfast to a handful of guests. "Did you sleep well, dear?" Mrs. Morrison asked. "As well as could be expected under the circumstances. I heard Kade Young is going to look for your trunk. If anyone can find it, he can. That man has a way of getting things done." "You know him well?" Fiona asked, accepting a plate of eggs and toast. "Everyone knows Kade. He has worked at Triple Creek for about 5 years now, since he was 20 or so. Came here from Wyoming, I believe. Good, solid worker. Honest. The kind of man this territory needs more of." Fiona ate slowly, trying to make the meal last, trying to fill the empty hours until Kade returned if he returned. She had no real reason to trust that he would do as he promised, except that something in his manner, in his eyes, told her he was a man of his word. The morning stretched endlessly. She walked through the town, familiarizing herself with its layout. She found the schoolhouse, a neat white building on the edge of town with a small bell tower. The door was locked, but she peered through the windows at the rows of desks, the slate board at the front, the pot-bellied stove in the corner. This was supposed to be her future. She pressed her hand against the glass, willing it to still be possible. By afternoon, she was back at Morrison House, sitting on the porch and watching the street. Every horse that appeared made her heart jump, but none of them carried Kade. The sun moved across the sky with agonizing slowness. It was nearly evening when she finally saw him. He was riding a sturdy bay horse, and behind him, tied to the saddle, was her trunk. Battered, water-stained, but unmistakably hers. Fiona leaped to her feet and ran down the steps, forgetting all propriety. "You found it. You actually found it." Kade dismounted with a grin that transformed his usually serious face. "Told you I would. It was caught in some brush about a quarter-mile downstream from where the stage crossed. Took some doing to fish it out, and I am afraid it took on some water, but it looks like most of the contents should be all right." He untied the trunk and carried it up the hotel steps as if it weighed nothing. Fiona followed, her hands pressed to her mouth, afraid to believe this stroke of good fortune. In her room, Kade set the trunk down gently and stepped back. I will leave you to go through it, he said. I need to get cleaned up myself. That river was not exactly pleasant. Wait, Fiona said. Please, I want you to see. I want to thank you properly. She knelt beside the trunk and opened it with trembling hands. The lock was still intact, though the leather was swollen with water. Inside, her things were damp but present, her dresses carefully folded. Her books, the pages rippled with moisture but readable. The small jewelry box, water-damaged but still closed. She opened it with shaking hands and found her mother's cameo brooch, her grandmother's wedding ring still safe. "It is all here," she whispered. "Everything." "I am glad," Kade said, and the warmth in his voice made her look up. He was watching her with an expression she could not quite read, something soft and pleased. "How can I ever thank you? You do not need to thank me. Just seeing your face right now is thanks enough." He moved toward the door. "I should go. You will want to dry things out, sort through everything." "Kade," Fiona said, and he turned back. "Would you have dinner with me tonight? My treat. It is the least I can do." "You do not need to do that." "I know I do not need to. I want to, please." He smiled again, that wonderful transformation. "All right. Give me an hour to make myself presentable. Meet you downstairs." After he left, Fiona attacked the trunk with methodical efficiency. She spread the dresses out to air, checked each book, inventoried every item. The bank documents were damp but legible. The letters of introduction had run slightly, but were still readable. Most importantly, the credentials from the Boston Teaching Academy were intact, the seal still visible even if the paper was wrinkled. She chose her best dress, a deep blue cotton that had survived the water better than some of the others, and changed quickly. With a brush from her trunk, she fixed her hair properly for the first time in days, pinning it up in a style that felt like civilization returning. When she looked in the mirror, she saw herself again, not the desperate, disheveled woman of the past 24 hours. Kade was waiting in the lobby, and he had clearly taken the hour seriously. He wore clean clothes. His hair was still damp from washing, and he had shaved. Without the dust of the trail, he was even more handsome, his features strong and even, his blue eyes bright with intelligence and kindness. "You clean up well," Fiona said, then blushed at her forwardness. "So do you," Kade replied. "That dress is a pretty color." They went back to Mrs. Hendrick's place, and this time Fiona insisted on paying despite Kade's protests. Over pot roast and potatoes, they talked more, easier now, falling into a rhythm that felt natural. "Tell me about Wyoming," Fiona said. "What brought you here?" "My father had a small ranch up there," Kade said. "After he died, my mother could not keep it going. She moved back east to live with her sister, but I wanted to stay out here. Figured I would work ranches, learn the trade, maybe save enough to start my own place someday." "You like it?" "The ranch work, I do. It is hard, but it is honest. You see the results of your labor directly. The cattle grow, the ranch prospers. You know you had a hand in it. And being outside, working with animals, it suits me better than being cooped up in an office somewhere." "I can understand that," Fiona said. "There is something to be said for meaningful work." "What will you teach?" Kade asked. "Everything, most likely. It is a small school, so I will have students of all ages. Reading, writing, arithmetic, history, geography. Perhaps some music if I can convince the school board to get a piano." "You play?" "I do. My mother taught me. It was one of the things I thought I would miss most out here, but perhaps I can find a way." They lingered over coffee, neither seeming in a hurry to end the evening. Mrs. Hendricks brought out apple pie, waving away Fiona's attempts to pay extra. "On the house," she said. "I am just glad things worked out for you, dear." When they finally left, full darkness had fallen. The street was lit by lamps from windows and the occasional lantern. Kade walked Fiona back to the hotel slowly, and they talked about small things, comfortable things. "When do you have to go back to the ranch?" Fiona asked as they reached Morrison House. "Tomorrow, most likely. I have been gone 2 days already. The foreman is understanding, but there is work to be done." "Of course." Fiona felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. In just 2 days, this man had become important to her in a way she did not fully understand. "Will you be all right? With the school board and everything?" "I think so. Now that I have my credentials, I can meet with them properly. I should be able to access my bank account too, so money will not be an issue." "Good." Kade shifted his weight, seeming suddenly uncertain. "Miss Ramirez, Fiona, I was wondering if it would be all right if I came to town again soon, to see how you are settling in." Fiona felt warmth spread through her chest. "I would like that very much, though the town is not so large that you need an excuse to visit." "No, but I like to be clear about my intentions." "And what are your intentions, Kade Young?" He met her eyes directly. "To get to know you better. If that is something you would want to." "It is," Fiona said softly. "Very much so." He smiled, and for a moment they just stood there, the night warm around them, the sounds of the town fading into background noise. Then Kade took off his hat and bent slightly, a gesture of respect. "Good night, Fiona." "Good night, Kade, and thank you again for everything." She watched him walk away into the darkness, then climbed the stairs to her room, her heart feeling lighter than it had in months. The next week passed in a flurry of activity. Fiona met with the school board, a group of earnest men who were clearly relieved that she had arrived, and even more relieved that she seemed competent despite her youth. They approved her hiring immediately and arranged for her to have a small house near the school, modest but clean and furnished with the basics. She spent her days preparing lesson plans and her evenings arranging her new home. The house had 2 rooms, a main living area with a small kitchen and a bedroom barely large enough for a bed and wardrobe. But it was hers, her own space, and she loved it immediately. Mrs. Hendricks and several other town women came by to welcome her, bringing small gifts, a set of dish towels, a jar of preserves, a knitted afghan. Their kindness touched her deeply, so different from the formal social calls of Boston. "We are glad to have a proper teacher, Mrs. Hendricks said as she helped Fiona arrange her books on a makeshift shelf. The last one was a man who spent more time in the saloon than the schoolhouse. "The children deserve better." "I will do my best," Fiona promised. School was set to begin in 2 weeks, and Fiona threw herself into preparations. She inventoried the supplies, assessed the condition of the building, planned her first lessons. It was exhausting and exhilarating, exactly what she had hoped for. But in the quiet moments, usually at night when she lay in her narrow bed, she thought about Kade. He had said he would come back to town, but nearly 10 days had passed with no sign of him. She told herself she was being foolish, that he was busy, that he owed her nothing. But still, she watched the street whenever she had a moment, hoping to see a familiar figure on a bay horse. On the Saturday before school was to start, Fiona was in the general store buying additional supplies when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "I heard the new teacher is mighty particular about her chalk." She turned to find Kade leaning against the counter, hat in hand, that gentle smile on his face. Joy flooded through her, surprising in its intensity. "Kade, I was beginning to think you had forgotten about Council Bluffs." "Not a chance. Just took longer than I expected to get clear. Cattle do not much care about social obligations." He gestured to her basket. "Getting ready for the first day, trying to. I am terrified and excited in equal measure. You will be wonderful. Those kids are lucky to have you." He paused, then added, "I was hoping you might have some time today. I would like to show you something if you are willing." "Show me what?" "It is a surprise. You will need to trust me." Fiona paid for her purchases and left them to be picked up later, then followed Kade outside where two horses were waiting. One was his bay, the other a gentle-looking mare. "I borrowed her from the livery," Kade explained. "Pete says she is perfect for inexperienced riders." "You do ride, do not you?" I learned as a child, but it has been years. "It will come back to you. This one is easy, I promise." Kade helped her mount, his hands steady on her waist, and then they were riding out of town, heading south. The day was beautiful, late summer warmth tempered by a breeze that carried the scent of grass and wildflowers. Fiona found her seat quickly, the old skills returning, and soon they were moving at an easy pace across the open country. "Where are we going?" she asked after about 20 minutes. "Not much farther. There, you can see it." He pointed ahead to a rise in the land, and as they crested it, Fiona gasped. Spread below them was a valley with a creek running through it, cottonwood trees clustered along the banks and grassland stretching in every direction. The sky seemed impossibly vast, unbroken blue from horizon to horizon. "It is beautiful," she breathed. "This is Triple Creek Ranch land," Kade said. "I wanted you to see it, to understand what I do, where I spend my days." They dismounted and walked down to the creek. Kade spread a blanket he had brought in his saddlebag, and they sat in the shade of a massive cottonwood. The water burbled over rocks and birds called from the branches above. "It must be wonderful working out here," Fiona said. "It has its moments. Also has its hard times, winter storms, summer droughts, ornery cattle. But yeah, mostly it is good." He plucked a blade of grass and twisted it between his fingers. "I have been thinking a lot this past week." "About what?" "About you. About how you ended up here in Council Bluffs at exactly the right moment for me to meet you. About how different my life felt after just 2 days of knowing you." Fiona's heart began to race. "Kade, let me finish," he said gently. "I know we have not known each other long. I know you have got a whole new life starting, with the school and everything. But I need to be honest with you. I am interested in courting you proper, if you are amenable. Not just visiting when I come to town, but really courting you, with the intention of seeing where this might lead." "I would like that," Fiona said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have thought about you constantly. I tried not to, tried to tell myself it was too soon, too fast, but I cannot help it." Kade reached over and took her hand. His palm was calloused from work but warm and steady. "Out here, things move different than in cities. We do not have time for long, drawn-out courtships. When you find something good, something real, you hold on to it. And you think this is real, after such a short time. I think it could be. I would like the chance to find out. What about you?" Fiona looked at their joined hands, then up at his face, so open and earnest. She thought about the life she had left behind, the expectations and restrictions, the careful social dances that meant nothing. This felt different. This felt true. "Yes," she said. "I want to find out too." They sat there for a long time, talking about everything and nothing, hands still linked. Kade told her about growing up in Wyoming, about his parents and his dreams of having his own ranch someday. Fiona talked about teaching, about her hopes for her students, about the books she loved and the places she wanted to see. "You should write all that down," Kade said. "About what you hope to teach the children. Could be something special. Maybe I will. Though right now I am more concerned with just surviving the first week." "You will do more than survive. You will thrive. I have seen how you approach things, how determined you are. Those kids do not know how lucky they are yet, but they will." The sun was starting to lower when they finally rode back to town. Kade left her at her little house, but not before promising to come back the following weekend. "I will bring a proper picnic next time," he said. "Mrs. Henderson at the ranch makes the best fried chicken in 3 states." "I look forward to it," Fiona said, and meant it with her whole heart. The first day of school arrived with clear skies and Fiona's stomach in knots. She arrived at the schoolhouse an hour early, arranging and rearranging the desks, writing the day's schedule on the slate board, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Students began arriving in clusters, some walking, some brought by parents in wagons. They ranged from 6 to 14, boys and girls in simple but clean clothes, most looking at her with open curiosity. She greeted each one, learning names, noting which one seemed shy and which seemed bold. By the time she rang the bell to start the day, she had 23 students arranged in rows before her. She stood at the front of the room, looked at their expectant faces, and felt a strange calm settle over her. This was what she was meant to do. "Good morning," she said. "My name is Miss Ramirez, and I am very happy to be your teacher." The day flew by in a blur of introductions, assessments, and establishing routines. Some students were well ahead in their studies, others struggled with basic reading. Fiona made mental notes about each one, already planning how to address their individual needs. When the final bell rang and the last child ran out into the afternoon, Fiona sank into her chair with exhaustion and satisfaction. She had done it. The first day was complete, and it had gone well. Over the following weeks, she fell into a rhythm, days at the school, evenings preparing lessons or grading work. Every Saturday, Kade came to town and they spent the day together. Sometimes they rode out to different parts of the ranch. Sometimes they simply walked through Council Bluffs talking. Always they were together, and always Fiona felt that sense of rightness, of pieces falling into place. The town noticed, of course. Mrs. Hendricks beamed whenever she saw them together. Mrs. Morrison made knowing comments about young love. The men who worked with Kade teased him mercilessly, which he bore with good humor. "They are just jealous," he told Fiona one Saturday as they sat by the creek again. "Most of them have been bachelors too long. They have forgotten what it is like to have someone to care about." "Do you care about me?" Fiona asked, though she thought she knew the answer. "More than I can properly express. You are always on my mind, Fiona, when I am working, when I am eating, when I am trying to sleep. Everything reminds me of you. The blue of the sky matches your dress. The sound of the wind makes me think of your laugh. I am completely gone over you." "I feel the same way," Fiona admitted. "My students probably think I am addled the way I stare off into space sometimes, thinking about you. What do you think about? Everything. What you are doing at that moment. What you might be thinking. What it will be like when I see you again." She paused, then added more quietly, "What the future might hold." Kade set down the blade of grass he had been fiddling with and turned to face her fully. "Fiona, I know it has only been a couple months. I know by city standards that is nothing. But out here, I have learned to trust my instincts, and every instinct I have is telling me that you are the one I have been waiting for without even knowing I was waiting." Fiona's breath caught. "Kade, what are you saying?" "I am saying I want to marry you. Not right this second. I understand you need time and you have got your teaching to think about. But I want you to know my intentions are serious. I want to build a life with you. I want to work toward that ranch I have been dreaming about and have you there beside me. I want children someday, a family, all of it, with you." Tears spilled down Fiona's cheeks, but they were happy tears. "Yes. Yes, you know my intentions, or yes, you want the same things, both, all of it." "Yes, Kade. Yes, I want to marry you. Yes, I want to build a life together. Yes to everything." He pulled her into his arms then, and they held each other as the creek burbled beside them and the cottonwood leaves rustled overhead. When they finally pulled apart, both were laughing and crying at the same time. "We should do this proper," Kade said. "I need to save up for a ring, and we should tell people, have a real engagement." "I do not need a ring," Fiona said. "I just need you. You will have both, I promise you that. They rode back to town in a daze of happiness. At Fiona's house, Kade helped her down from the horse and held her hands in his. I will talk to my foreman, see if I can get some extra work, build up our savings faster. And I will start looking for land, somewhere we can start our own place. Do not rush, Fiona said. I need to finish out the school year anyway. We have time. I know. But now that I have decided I want to get started, want to build something worthy of you. You are already worthy of me, Kade Young. You are the best man I have ever known. He kissed her then, softly, a promise and a beginning. Then he mounted his horse and rode off toward the ranch, turning back once to wave. Fiona floated through the next week. Everything seemed brighter, sharper, more beautiful. Her students noticed the change in her demeanor and responded to it, working harder, smiling more. She found herself more patient, more creative in her teaching, as if her happiness was spilling over into every aspect of her life. On Friday after school, Mrs. Hendricks came by with a basket of fresh bread and a knowing smile. I heard congratulations are in order, she said. How did you? Dear girl, this is Council Bluffs. Everyone knows everything. Kade told Pete at the livery, who told his wife, who told me. I am delighted for you both. It feels almost too good to be true, Fiona admitted. Like something will go wrong. Nothing is going to go wrong. That boy loves you something fierce and you clearly love him back. That is all that matters. The rest, the money and the house and all that, it will work itself out. Love is the foundation. Everything else can be built on that. Her words proved prophetic. Over the next months, as fall turned to winter and winter began to hint at spring, Fiona and Kade built their future piece by piece. He found land for sale about 8 miles south of Council Bluffs, good grazing land with a small creek running through it. The owner was an aging rancher looking to sell and move to California to be near his daughter. The price was fair, and Kade had been saving every spare dollar. Fiona continued teaching, and word spread about the excellent education happening at the Council Bluffs school. Families from outlying farms began sending their children, and Fiona found herself with a waiting list. The school board, thrilled with the interest, agreed to pay her a small stipend increase and began discussing building an additional classroom. You are going to have to stop, Kade said one Saturday as they looked at the land he had purchased. Once we are married, I mean. Married women do not teach. I know, Fiona said, and she did know. It was the way things were. But the thought of giving up teaching just when she was really hitting her stride hurt more than she wanted to admit. Kade must have seen something in her face because he took her hands. What if you did not have to stop completely? What if we set up a school on our property? Nothing formal, just teaching the ranch children and any farm kids whose families want to send them. You could still teach, just in a different way. Hope bloomed in Fiona's chest. Do you really think that could work? I do not see why not. We would have the space, and there is definitely a need. A lot of kids out on the ranches and farms do not get much schooling because they cannot make the trip to town. You would be providing a real service. That would be wonderful. Though I will miss my students in town. Maybe you could do both for a while, transition slowly. We do not have to have everything figured out right this second. They were married on a bright April morning in 1877, 8 months after Fiona had arrived in Council Bluffs with nothing but the dress on her back. The ceremony was held in the small church at the edge of town, with what seemed like half of Council Bluffs in attendance. Mrs. Hendricks cried through the entire service. Pete from the livery served as Kade's best man. Several of Fiona's students acted as flower girls and ring bearers, taking their duties very seriously. Fiona wore a new dress, cream-colored silk, that Mrs. Morrison had helped her order from Omaha. But pinned at her throat was her mother's cameo brooch, the one that had survived the lost trunk, a connection to her past as she stepped into her future. When Kade said, "I do," and she said, "I do," Fiona felt a completeness she had never known before. This was right. This was home. The reception was held at Mrs. Hendrick's place, which had been transformed with flowers and ribbons. There was food and music and dancing. Kade, usually so reserved, danced with Fiona for what felt like hours, both of them laughing and breathless. "Happy?" he asked as they spun around the floor. "Beyond measure," she replied. They spent their wedding night at Morrison House, in the same room where Fiona had once sat devastated over her lost trunk. It felt like coming full circle, from that moment of despair to this moment of joy. "I keep thinking about that first day," Fiona said as they lay together in the darkness, her head on Kade's chest, his arm around her shoulders. "How lost I felt, how impossible everything seemed. I remember, too, you looked so sad standing there on the street corner. I knew I had to help somehow." "You did more than help. You saved me in every way a person can be saved." "I think we saved each other," Kade said softly. "I was just going through the motions before I met you. Working, saving, planning, but not really living. You made everything brighter. You made me want things I had not even known I wanted." They moved into their property a week later. The house was small, just 3 rooms that Kade had built with help from other ranch hands, but it was sturdy and well made. Fiona spent days making it a home, hanging curtains she had sewn, arranging their modest furniture, planting a small garden. True to his word, Kade helped her set up a small school in what had been intended as a storage shed. With some work, it became a cozy classroom with space for a dozen students. Word spread, and soon Fiona had 8 children coming 3 days a week, children who would have otherwise had no schooling at all. She continued teaching in Council Bluffs the other 2 days, gradually training a younger teacher to take over. It was hard to let go, but she knew it was time. Her life was here now, on this land, with Kade, building something new. The first year of marriage was full of hard work and small joys. They raised cattle and chickens. They built fences and repaired buildings. They learned each other's rhythms, how to work together, when to give each other space, when to come together. They learned about compromise and communication, about the daily work of building a life. And through it all, there was love. The kind of love that grew deeper with each passing day, that was tested by hard times and celebrated in good times, that became the bedrock of everything they did. It was late summer when Fiona realized she was pregnant. She had suspected for a few weeks but wanted to be sure before saying anything. When she finally told Kade, he picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing with delight. "A baby," he kept saying. "We are going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" Fiona asked, though his joy was evident. "Happy does not even begin to cover it. This is everything I wanted. You, a home, and now a child. It is more than I ever dreamed." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Fiona continued teaching her small class until she became too uncomfortable to stand for long periods. Then she had her students come to the house for lessons, conducting class from a comfortable chair by the fireplace. Kade became impossibly protective, trying to do all the heavy work, worrying constantly about her health. It was endearing and occasionally frustrating, but Fiona understood it came from love. Their son was born on a cold March morning in 1878, with Mrs. Hendricks serving as midwife. The labor was long and difficult, but when Fiona finally held the tiny, squalling infant in her arms, every moment of pain was forgotten. "He is perfect," Kade breathed, touching the baby's tiny hand with one calloused finger. "Absolutely perfect." They named him Matthew after Kade's father. He had Kade's blue eyes and Fiona's dark hair, and from the beginning, he was the center of their world. Life shifted again to accommodate this new member of their family. Fiona put teaching aside temporarily, focusing on caring for Matthew. Kade worked harder than ever, expanding their herd, making improvements to their property, driven by the need to provide for his growing family. "I want him to have every opportunity," he told Fiona one night as they watched their sleeping son. "I want him to go to school, to college if he wants. I want him to choose his own path, not be forced into something because of money." "He will have all of that," Fiona assured him. "We will make sure of it together." As Matthew grew from infant to toddler, Fiona slowly returned to teaching her small school. She brought Matthew with her, setting up a play area in the corner of the classroom where he could entertain himself while she taught. Her students adored him, often taking breaks to play with him or help watch him. More children began coming to her school as word spread about the quality of education she provided. Kade helped her build an addition onto the classroom, expanding it to accommodate 15 students. It was unofficial, unaffiliated with any formal school board, but it was making a real difference in the lives of ranch and farm children who had few other options. The years passed in a blur of love and work and growth. Their ranch prospered. Kade's reputation as a fair dealer and excellent cattleman spread, and their herd grew steadily. Fiona's school became an institution in the area, with families from as far as 15 miles away sending their children. When Matthew was 3, Fiona became pregnant again. This time the pregnancy was easier, and their daughter was born on a warm June evening with much less drama than Matthew's arrival. They named her Clara, after Fiona's mother. Clara was different from Matthew from the start, more serious, more observant. While Matthew charged at life head-on, Clara watched and planned. Kade joked that she got Fiona's teaching brain, always analyzing and organizing. The four of them formed a tight unit, their lives intertwined in countless daily rituals. Breakfast together before Kade went out to work. Lessons in the schoolroom with Matthew and Clara sitting in on classes, even when they were too young to truly participate. Evenings around the dinner table, sharing the events of the day. Sundays spent together, sometimes riding out to their favorite spot by the creek, sometimes simply staying home and enjoying the peace. It was not always easy. There were years when drought threatened their livelihood. Times when illness swept through the community, and Fiona worried constantly about her children. Disagreements between her and Kade that required careful navigation. The constant physical demands of ranch life that left them both exhausted. But through it all, they had each other. And they had that foundation they had built in those early days, that certainty that they were meant to be together, that they could face anything as long as they faced it side by side. When Matthew was 7 and Clara 4, Fiona started teaching at the Council Bluffs school again one day a week. Her old students, now teenagers, remembered her fondly and helped with her younger students. It felt good to be back in the formal classroom, to be part of the town's educational system again. One Saturday, as Kade and Fiona sat on their porch watching their children play in the yard, he took her hand. "You remember the first time I brought you out here?" he asked. "Before we bought this land, when it was just empty prairie, of course. You said you wanted me to understand what you did, where you spent your days. I was so nervous that day. I was not sure if you would understand, if you would be able to see what I saw in this land. What did you see? Home, future, everything I wanted but had not known how to ask for." He squeezed her hand. "You saw it too, did not you?" "I saw you," Fiona said. "And wherever you were, that was home. The land, the house, all of this, it is wonderful. But it is you, Kade. It has always been you. I love you," he said simply. "More now than even on our wedding day, which I would not have thought possible. I love you too. Thank you for finding my trunk that day, Kade laughed. Thank you for losing it in the first place. Otherwise, we might never have met. Do you really think that? That it took such a specific circumstance for us to find each other? I do not know. Maybe we would have met some other way, but I like to think that day was meant to happen exactly as it did. You lost and alone, me in town at exactly the right moment, the trunk in the river. All of it leading to this. He gestured at their children, their home, their life spread before them. All you need is right here, Fiona said softly, remembering. That is what you told me that first day when I was so worried about replacing everything I had lost. You said all I needed was right here. Did I? I do not remember saying that. You did. You were trying to make me feel better about the situation, pointing out that Council Bluffs had everything I would need, but I think about those words a lot. Because you were right in ways you did not even intend. Everything I needed was right there that day, standing in front of me. I just did not know it yet. Their quiet moment was interrupted by Matthew running up to the porch. Papa, Clara said she saw a coyote by the barn. Can we go look? Kade stood, still holding Fiona's hand. Come on, let us all go investigate. They walked together as a family across the land they had built their life on. Matthew ran ahead, fearless and energetic. Clara held Fiona's other hand, asking questions about coyotes, about animals, about everything. Kade pointed out different features of their property, places where they might expand, improvements they could make. This was their life now. Not the life Fiona had imagined for herself back in Boston, not the lonely bachelor existence Kade had been living before they met. This was something new, something better, something they had created together from nothing. That night, after the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Fiona and Kade lay in bed talking softly. I have been thinking about expanding the school, Fiona said. There are so many children who still are not getting any education. What if we built a real schoolhouse on our property? Something bigger, more permanent? That is a big undertaking, Kade said, but she could hear the interest in his voice. I know, but we have the resources now. And it feels like the right time. Matthew will be ready for more advanced studies soon, and Clara too in a few years. Plus, all the other children in the area. We could provide something really special. All right, let us start planning. We can talk to the lumber yard, price things out, see what is feasible. You would do that. Just like that, Fiona, I have watched you teach for years now. I have seen how you light up when you are in that classroom. I have seen the difference you make in these children's lives. If building a bigger school will let you do more of that, then we will build it. Simple as that. She turned to face him in the darkness. How did I get so lucky to find you, to have this life? I ask myself the same question every day. About you, about our children, about all of this. We are both lucky, I think. Lucky and grateful. They built the schoolhouse the following year. It took months of work and most of their savings, but when it was complete, it was beautiful. A one-room building with real windows, a proper blackboard, enough desks for 20 students, and a small library area with books that Fiona had been collecting for years. The opening day felt like a celebration. Families from all around came to see the new building. Fiona gave a tour, showing off the features, explaining her teaching philosophy. By the end of the day, she had enrolled 18 students, with more asking about joining in the following term. You did it, Kade said that night. Built something real, something that will last. We did it, Fiona corrected. None of this would exist without you, without your support, your labor, your belief in me. Years continued to pass, marked by the changing seasons and the milestones of their children. Matthew grew tall and strong, interested in both ranching and books. Clara proved to be exceptionally bright, reading at levels far beyond her age. They added another child, a son they named Thomas, who arrived with a lusty cry and a shock of red hair that neither parent could account for. "Must be from my grandmother," Kade said, bemused. "She had red hair, according to my mother." Fiona's school continued to thrive. Students who had learned with her went on to do remarkable things. Some became teachers themselves. Others used their education to improve their family ranches or start businesses. One boy she had taught from the age of 6 eventually became a lawyer in Omaha, writing to her years later to thank her for giving him the foundation he needed. Their ranch prospered too. Kade's careful management and fair dealing made Young Ranch one of the most respected in the region. They employed several ranch hands, treating them well and earning their loyalty. The house grew as their needs changed, adding rooms, expanding the kitchen, building a proper study where Fiona could work on lesson plans and Kade could manage the ranch accounts. Through it all, their love remained constant. They still rode out to their creek when they could steal moments alone, still talked for hours about everything and nothing, still found joy in each other's company. Marriage had not dimmed their passion. It had transformed it into something deeper, more enduring. When Matthew turned 18, he announced he wanted to go to college in Lincoln to study agriculture and animal husbandry. "I want to come back and help run the ranch," he explained to his parents. "But I want to learn the latest techniques, the science behind it all. I want to make this place even better." "Of course," Kade said, though Fiona could see the emotion in his eyes. "That is exactly what we wanted for you, the education to choose your own path." "I am choosing this path," Matthew said firmly. "I am choosing to come back here. This ranch, this family, this is what I want, but I want to be as prepared as possible." Clara was 15 then, already teaching some of the younger students at Fiona's school. She had her mother's gift for making complex ideas simple, for seeing where each student needed help. "I want to go to the teaching college in Omaha when I am 18, she told her parents. "I want to be a real teacher like you, Mama, but in a bigger town where I can reach more students." "Whatever you want to do, we will support you," Fiona promised, though her heart ached at the thought of her children leaving. Thomas was 10, still young enough to be content at home, but already showing signs of his own strong will and clear ideas about what he wanted. The changes came gradually, giving them time to adjust. Matthew left for college but came home for every break, full of new ideas and enthusiasm. Clara continued her studies and her teaching assistants. Thomas grew and learned and explored. Fiona was 45 when she realized she was pregnant again. It came as a shock. She and Kade had assumed their family was complete, but nature had other plans. "Are you happy about this?" she asked Kade when she told him. "I am if you are," he said carefully. "Though I will admit I am a bit concerned. Babies at our age, it can be risky. I am healthy. And we have resources now that we did not have when Matthew was born. It will be fine." And it was. Their second daughter, Emily, was born without complications. A small, delicate baby who looked nothing like any of her siblings but was adored by all of them. Matthew came home from college to meet his new sister. Clara helped care for her. Thomas appointed himself her protector. "Our family just keeps expanding," Kade said, cradling Emily while Fiona rested. "I love it." Life settled into new patterns. Matthew graduated and returned home, immediately implementing new practices he had learned. The ranch benefited enormously from his education. Clara went off to teaching college, writing long letters home about her studies. Thomas continued his education at Fiona's school, showing an aptitude for mathematics that surprised everyone. Emily grew, a bright spot in their later years. She had a personality all her own, creative and spirited. She loved music, and Kade bought a piano for her when she was 6, hiring a teacher from Council Bluffs to come out once a week for lessons. "Remember when you said you hoped there might be a piano someday?" Kade asked as they listened to Emily practice. "I remember. I never imagined it would be in my own home, being played by my own daughter." "Life has a way of exceeding expectations," Kade said. "At least ours has." When Fiona turned 50, Kade organized a celebration. Their entire extended family came, children and grandchildren, for Matthew had married a girl from a neighboring ranch and they had 2 children of their own now. Clara came home from Omaha, where she was teaching at a large school. Thomas, now studying engineering in Kansas, made the journey back. Emily, 14 and musical and lovely, played piano for the gathering. "Look at all this," Fiona said to Kade as they surveyed the crowded house. "All these people, all this love, and it started with a lost trunk and a kind cowboy." "Best day of my life finding that trunk," Kade said. "Because it meant I got to keep seeing you. You knew even then that I was special, I suspected. By the second day I was sure. By the time we had that first dinner at Mrs. Hendricks, I was in love with you. I just needed time to let you catch up." "Arrogant man," Fiona said fondly. "Confident," he corrected. "There is a difference." As Fiona moved through her 50s and into her 60s, she gradually scaled back her teaching. Younger teachers took over most of the classes at the schoolhouse, though she still taught a few special students who needed extra help. She spent more time with her grandchildren, passing on the love of learning to the next generation. Kade, too, slowed down, letting Matthew and the ranch hands handle more of the physical work while he focused on management and planning. But he still rode out every day, still checked on the cattle, still found reasons to be on the land he loved. They took to sitting on their porch most evenings, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. They talked about the past, about their children and grandchildren, about the life they had built. "Do you have any regrets?" Fiona asked him one evening. Kade thought for a long moment. "I regret not meeting you sooner. But then, maybe we needed to be exactly the people we were at exactly that moment to recognize what we had found. So maybe not even that. What about you?" "No regrets. Every choice led me here to you, to this life. Even the hard things, even losing my parents, even the difficult years with my aunt. All of it brought me to that stagecoach, to that lost trunk, to you. All you need is right here," Kade said softly. "I did say that, did not I? That first day, you did. And you were right. You have always been right about the important things." They were in their 70s when Kade's health began to fail. It started small, a cough that would not go away, fatigue that sleep did not cure. The doctor in Council Bluffs diagnosed a heart condition, something that could not be fixed, only managed. "How long?" Kade asked bluntly. "Impossible to say with certainty. Could be years, could be months. Depends on how well you take care of yourself." Kade took the news with characteristic calm, but Fiona fell apart that night in their bedroom. "I cannot lose you," she sobbed. "I do not know how to exist without you." "You will not have to for a while yet," he soothed, holding her close. "And when the time comes, whenever that is, you will manage because you are the strongest person I know. You survived losing your parents, losing your trunk, starting over in a strange place. You can survive anything. But I do not want to survive without you. I want you. I know. I want that too, but we do not always get what we want. What we can control is how we spend the time we have. And I want to spend it loving you, being with our family, enjoying this life we built. Not mourning something that has not happened yet." So that was what they did. Kade took his medications, cut back on strenuous activities, but otherwise lived as fully as he could. They had 3 more years together, 3 years of sunsets and family dinners, of watching grandchildren grow, of quiet conversations on the porch. He died on a spring morning in their bed with Fiona holding his hand. His last words were, "Thank you for the life we built. Thank you for everything." The funeral was attended by hundreds. Ranch hands he had employed over the years, students Fiona had taught, families they had helped through hard times. The church could not hold everyone, so people stood outside, heads bowed, paying their respects to a good man who had lived a good life. Fiona thought she might die herself from the grief. For weeks after, she could barely function. Her children rallied around her, taking turns staying at the ranch, making sure she ate, that she got out of bed, that she did not simply give up. It was Emily, now 32 and a music teacher in Omaha, who finally got through to her. "Mama, he would not want this. He would not want you to stop living because he did. He would want you to keep going, to keep teaching, to keep being part of this family. You have grandchildren who need you. Great-grandchildren now. You have a life that does not stop just because his did." "I do not know how to be without him," Fiona whispered. "Yes, you do. You were your own person before you met him. You will be your own person again. He was part of you, a huge part, but not all of you. There is still so much of you left to give, Mama." Slowly, painfully, Fiona found her way back to herself. She returned to teaching, just a few hours a week with the youngest students. She spent time with her family, delighting in her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She wrote down her memories of Kade, of their life together, wanting future generations to know the man he had been. She lived another 15 years, dying peacefully in her sleep at the age of 89. Her children found her in her bed, a slight smile on her face, the notebook containing her memories of Kade open beside her. At her funeral, Matthew, now in his 60s himself, read from his mother's final entry. "I am ready now," he read, his voice breaking. Ready to see Kade again, to tell him about all he missed. Ready to walk with him by our creek, to sit under that cottonwood tree where he first told me he wanted to marry me. This has been a good life, fuller and richer than I ever imagined possible when I stepped off that stagecoach with nothing but a lost trunk and a lot of fear. Kade showed me that all I needed was right there in that moment, in that place, and he was right. Everything I needed, everything I wanted, everything I became, started with him finding that trunk, started with him finding me. I have been blessed beyond measure, and I am grateful for every moment." The young ranch continued to prosper under Matthew's management and eventually under his children's management. The schoolhouse remained, a community resource, a testament to Fiona's commitment to education. Generations of children learned their letters and numbers in that building, all benefiting from the foundation she had laid. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the sun was setting and the sky was painted in brilliant colors, people claimed they could see two figures sitting by the creek under the cottonwood tree. A man and a woman, heads close together, talking and laughing. No one could ever get close enough to see clearly, but everyone knew who it was. Kade and Fiona Young, still together, still in love, their story becoming part of the land itself, a reminder that sometimes losing everything is just the beginning of finding what you truly need. Their story was told and retold, passed down through generations. The tale of the lost trunk and the cowboy who found it, the Eastern lady and the Western rancher who built a life from nothing, the love that lasted a lifetime and beyond. It became part of local legend, a story parents told their children, a reminder that the best things in life often come when we least expect them, that true love does exist, and that sometimes, when we lose everything, we discover that all we truly need was right there in front of us all along.